Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is Liz Loves Books. Today I'm going to be talking about all the books that I've read so far this year for January and February, so let's get into it. The Blue Slush Alani just gives me life. Like, I don't know who I was before this. It's the best flavor. If you haven't tried it, Target always has the Blue Slush Alani. Alrighty, let's get into the books that I've read so far this year. So we're going to start with January. January, I read quite a few books. And I started off the year with an e-arc of Graceless Heart by Isabel Ibanez. And sadly, this was a DNF. Yes, my first book of the year was a DNF. It was really upsetting. I read pretty far in the book, but it just kept dragging on and on for me. And I just couldn't get into the characters. The plot itself was really interesting, but parts of the plot that I thought that there was going to be expanded upon wasn't. And I was just not connecting. And I was like, this was a year that I determined I was going to DNF more if I wasn't interested and invested in the characters. And unfortunately, this was the case. So my first book of the year was a DNF. This was a standalone historical fantasy romance, which I was really excited about because I didn't have to commit to a series and I could just say I've read it. And then I DNF'd it. I read about like 245 pages too, so I got pretty far in. But then, luckily after that, I switched and I read The Names by Florence Knapp. This is a release that came out last year. I got this right at the end of December at Barnes & Noble. I kind of purchased it on a whim, and this is a contemporary fiction book, and I gave this book 4.5 stars. So far, this is my favorite book that I have read this year. It is different than what I normally read, but I've also been trying to expand on that this year. And this is a debut book as well, and the writing is absolutely phenomenal. And basically what this book is about, it is about a mother who has a husband, a daughter, and then her son. And this focuses on the lives that the son has. But the reason it's called The Names is because it focuses on what her son's life would be like depending on what name he was given at birth. So it follows 3 different storylines of what her son's life would be like if you have these different names, and that some of them are better lives than others, some of them are really great lives and then end in a tragedy, some start in tragedy and end in good, some are just kind of like a normal life. And it also discusses the lives of the character's sister, the mother, the father, and then the family and friends that go along with this. And I just thought it was so unique and so clever, and I'm really looking forward to continuing on with this author and whatever books that they write next. Yeah, we're waiting for a 5-star to beat this out. I can't explain why I gave it a 4.5 and not a 5. It just didn't have that 5-star feeling, but a 4.5 is still an absolutely amazing rating. Next, I read Hungerstone by Kat Dunn. I listened to it on audio from my library, and this one I ended up giving a 3 stars. This is described as a historical horror, and I, throughout it, was just kind of bored. Nothing was really grabbing my attention, and I thought, and the pace is much more slower. So if you're not into slow-paced books, I would maybe steer away from this one because it just wasn't captivating. It wasn't keeping my interest, and this was also a Carmilla retelling, so there is that kind of vampire-esque plotline to it, and I was like, how could a book about vampires feel so boring? Make it make sense? I don't know, but I gave this one 3 stars. And then after that, I moved on to a thriller called Home is Where the Bodies Are by Geneva Rose. This was a book that I had on my physical TBR, and this one I also read for Winterween, and this one I also sadly only gave 3 stars. It was not a bad book or anything like that. I wasn't connected to the characters. I wasn't super invested in the plotline that was going on. Although I will say the twists at the end, there was one that I did not guess. So that was really great because I always get frustrated when I can guess the twists of a thriller. Then I read an ebook of Capitalism, A Ghost Story by Arundhati Roy. This was a nonfiction book that I was reading. It was only 100 pages. I'm not reading nonfiction this year, but I read this for the Boundless Book Club, which focuses on a specific theme each month, and you read a fiction book and a nonfiction book. This one was just a boatload of information that was thrown at you. At this point, I can't even recollect anything that I read of it, but I learned that, this takes place with the politics of India specifically, and with the world going on how it is, I feel like sometimes America's like the worst country in the universe. But then, like, reading a book like this, I realized, wow, a lot of countries are really corrupt and dealing with a lot of political, socioeconomic problems, and I was glad to kind of hear, like, we're not alone in that sense, but it was just a little bit too info dumpy for me to really obtain any greater knowledge from it. Then I read the Improbable Meet Cute Second Chances novella collection. This consisted of multiple romance authors writing a short story for an entire collection. So I read Accidentally Yours by Christina Lauren, Time Will Tell by Hannah Bonham Young, Second Act Romance by Julie Soto, A Play for Love by Charlena Pucci, Death to Valentine's Day by Catherine Cowles, and Valentine's Sleigh by Nevessa Allen. Now, these were just really, like, short and sweet. I really enjoyed this collection. I listened to them all on audio. I liked it more than the original Improbable Meet Cute collection. And my favorites of this collection were Time Will Tell and Second Act Romance. These were just really fun, sweet, and easy romance short stories to read and have something entertaining to listen to while I was at work. So then I went on to an e-arc that I had of Obsidian Sky by Jill Astor. I only got 62 pages into this before DNFing it. The writing was just not good. It was unfortunately really hard to follow. There was a lot of different viewpoints that kept popping in and out, and I didn't know who was talking when and who we were talking about when, and it just felt like a less fleshed out version of Fourth Wing. And since I've read that twice now, I was just like, I cannot read this. So unfortunately, I DNF'd that book. And then I listened to The Coworker by Frida McFadden. I listened to Frida's books when I'm looking for an audiobook that I can listen to while at work. And I gave this a 3.5 star. It was pretty good. It was written differently than a lot of her other books that I've listened to. And I didn't guess the twist at the end, although I wasn't, like, extremely blown away by anything within the book. At least the characters in this one, they weren't as annoying as some of the characters in her other books, which was nice. And then I went through two other books in January that were both DNFs. I went through my Libro FM ALC library to try to find another audiobook. And so I started listening to The Grace of Your Patient by Caitlin Starling. I got only about 47 pages into that. I was bored to tears. It was nothing like what I expected. And this was also a horror. And then I was listening to an anticipated release that I had called Dandelion is Dead by Rosie Story. This was a fiction book. I got about 115 pages in, and just the storyline with where it was going wasn't what I was expecting or wanting. So I was like, okay, we're just going to DNF it, move on to another book. And then I got to my third Libro FM ALC, and I listened to The Great Disillusionment of Nick and Jay by Ryan Douglas. This was a YA romance, YA historical romance, because it was a Great Gatsby retelling. And I ended up giving this a 3.5 stars. The writing was really good. I thought the characters were pretty well fleshed out. I just don't know a ton about The Great Gatsby. I've never read it. I've never seen the movie, so I think that took away a little bit of the enjoyment that I might have had for it. But I did really enjoy having our main characters both be of African American descent and also queer during, like, the 1920s timeline. So I thought that was really unique. And I think this is a really good book for YA readers to read. And as a librarian, I would definitely recommend this for people that are looking for a different type of book to read if they're looking for that in YA. I read Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan, book 1 in the Skyland series, and I gave this book 4.5 stars. It's definitely up there with the names for enjoyment for me so far this year. And I actually found this at Half Price Books not too long ago, so I was able to purchase it and read it pretty quickly. And I'm going to read a little bit of my review because this book has so much that goes on in it that I don't want to, mess up describing this. So I said, everyone has said this book is excellent, and it was. The writing was absolutely stunning and amazing and so consistent from beginning to end. Kennedy Ryan is a master at what she does, and I need to get my hands on the next 2 books in the series because it's a trilogy. With my newly developed love of second chance romance in 2024, I was hyping this book up so much, and it did not disappoint. Yasmin and Josiah, our main characters in this book, are dealing with a second chance romance. And it led me through a myriad of emotions. I was happy, sad, angry, irritated, shocked, excited, and so many more things. I loved that Kennedy Ryan made me love both Yasmin and Josiah, even though they were both very flawed characters and very human, though. Like, reading this, I was like, okay, yeah, I could definitely see this happening in real life. Like, there was nothing fake about it or unrealistic. And their connection was so strong throughout the story. Even when they were just having a normal conversation, you could just feel that connection between them. And so, like, the scenes that were, like, slightly spicy were, like, supercharged and stunning, but also realistic to what you experience in real life in that vibe. Like, I was like, oh, okay, I loved how realistic it was. And I also loved the discussions on mental health and the importance of therapy, specifically for Black men in this book. Our FMC Yasmin, she goes to therapy, and our MMC Josiah, he is very against therapy, doesn't think it's for him. He's not against other people utilizing it, but for himself, he thinks it's unnecessary. And he ends up going to therapy in this book to show his son that it's okay to go. And it showed really beautiful family dynamics, beautiful female friendships, and a really interesting viewpoint on grief. And it was just written so carefully and beautifully. And so I give Kennedy all the props for that. And you also get a glimpse of the other two characters that are going to be in the next two books, because they are the friends of Yasmin in this one. And I would highly recommend this book if you're looking for a more unique, realistic contemporary romance. And then finally, the last book that I read in January was another DNF at 36 pages, and that was Capitalists Must Starve by Ceolion Park. And this was another book that I was reading for the Boundless Book Club, and this was the fiction book, and it just was written very differently than I'm used to, and so I couldn't really wrap my mind around what was happening. So I was just like, okay, I'm gonna cut my losses. I've read a lot of books this month and move on. Moving on to the books that I read in February, the first book that I read was Through Gates of Garnet and Gold by Seanan McGuire. This is book 11 in the Wayward Children series. It's a novella series. I gave this book 4 stars. I really enjoyed this series. We were able to go back and follow our original main character, Nancy, from the first book in the series. So there was that really cool, reoccurrence of that character and the other characters that were more present in the first couple books, since they haven't been in the previous ones. And we are finally back with Nancy in her portal fantasy world, the Halls of the Dead, and something is unaliving her fellow people, and she is told to go back to Eleanor West's home for wayward children to get help from her former friends that have lived there. And we have a fun little ragtag group of kids who have great found family dynamic, as well as a unique world to explore, only in 150 pages. So if you're looking for a new series to get into that isn't like a giant commitment, this is a really fun series to read by Seanan McGuire. Then I listened to an audiobook of Cobalt Red, How the Blood of the Congo Powers Our Lives by Siddharth Kara. This was a nonfiction. It was part of the Boundless Book Club that I am a part of. And this book, I learned so much with listening to this book. Again, it's a nonfiction, so I didn't rate it, but I had no idea the horrible atrocities that were going on and probably still going on in the Democratic Republic of the Congo in Africa. My main takeaway that I took from this was how we always think okay, gas-powered vehicles are bad because, we're destroying the planet. And so people want to use electric vehicles. So electric vehicles apparently need the substance of cobalt to run efficiently. And this is also used in a lot of our cell phones, what I'm filming on currently and using my laptop in front of me. And we have all of these poor boys and men in the Congo constantly digging for this cobalt in such a quick succession, and they have just terrible conditions for their jobs, and they're dying every single day and barely making anything to survive, living dirt poor. And I was just like, wow, any moment where I think my life is a struggle, it really isn't in comparison to what some of these people are dealing with. And our author here, he is of Indian descent, but he went to the Congo to basically be the first person to unearth these atrocities that are occurring. And he interviewed so many people in this book, different families, different areas of the Congo, different children, men, women, elderly, and just to get all of their insight onto what is happening and how they think we could improve on this. I just don't understand why us as like a world can't just give people a living wage and clean water and a good work environment. I just don't understand why that is so difficult for people to do. Like, this book gave me a little bit of an existential crisis, which is the point of this book club, to really expand your viewpoint. But also having to read that in February, and then after this book, I just kind of like took a break from reading for a bit, and then I got really busy with wedding planning, and then I got COVID. So you're going to see a little bit of a downfall of books that I've read after this one. And since I read this one, I immediately went into an audiobook of a Frida McFadden book. I read her new release, Dear Debbie, because I just needed something completely to like wipe my brain. And I gave this a 3 stars. I was not a big fan of this book. I thought it was written differently again than her previous books, but I just thought it was kind of stupid, which is really, really bad. Debbie is supposed to be an unlikable character, and I did not like her. So that's totally fine. But the reasoning for everything was just kind of like astronomical. Like, it's like there's no way you could really get away with it in real life, which books you're meant to escape sometimes. But I just was not a fan of this one as much as when I read The Coworker in January and her previous books I read last year. Took me a while, but I was able to read the 4th book in the Veronica Speedwell mystery series, A Dangerous Collaboration, and I annotated this one because each one I'm reading I am annotating, and this I've heard is everyone's like favorite book in this series. It's another longer series. I gave this book a 4 stars. I did really enjoy it. All the books in this series so far have been 4, except book 1 was a 5-star. And we're following our main characters, Veronica and Stoker, and they are kind of like a little team that go together all across Europe and solve all these mysteries that are occurring. And it takes place in the late 1800s, so it's a really different timeline to be able to kind of switch to, which was nice for me in February. So a little bit of my synopsis from Goodreads. It says, I was so glad to see the banter return with Veronica and Stoker in this book, as book 3 was a little bit low on that, and it didn't disappoint. This book made the banter even stronger because Veronica is posing as Tiberius's fiance, and Tiberius is our MMC's Stoker's brother, older brother. So we kind of added that fun little element along with the murder mystery plotline that was occurring. And this time we followed the potential disappearance of Rosamond Romilly, the fiance of a very rich man named Malcolm Romilly, and he is Tiberius's oldest friend. And the backdrop is Malcolm's old Gothic castle on St. Madern's Island, and you have a supporting cast of a couple different people. We have Mertensia Romilly, who's a gardener, and Malcolm's sister, Helen Romilly, Malcolm's sister-in-law, Caspian Helen's son, and Mrs. Trengroose, who's like the castle's head servant. And Veronica, Stoker, and Tiberius have to grapple with all these strange family members and the isolated island's townspeople, all while attempting to solve the disappearance of Rosamond. It's like a mixture between Agatha Christie's murder mysteries and a historical romance. Now we're going to go into some more DNFs. I was attempting to read The Blueprint by Ray Gianna Rashad. I got 74 pages into this ebook, and it was the fiction book for the Boundless Book Club. So I've now DNF'd 2 of the fiction books for that book club. I am kind of sad that I DNF'd this book. I read it. It's a little bit of like a sci-fi dystopian fiction book, and it is a debut as well, so I was kind of sad to DNF it for that. But Goodreads says it's a captivating debut exploring power imbalances, bodily autonomy, love, and the generational legacy of resilience. And it's interesting because it's set in an alternate version of the United States, a world of injustice and bondage, and we follow our FMC Solène Bonet, and she's a young Black woman living in Texas. And Texas is a society where there's an algorithm that dictates her occupation, spouse, residence. And it says, seeking solace, she pens the biography of Henriette, her ancestor and an enslaved concubine. And when Solène becomes entangled with Bastien Martin, a high-ranking government official, she must decide with Henriette's story as her guide whether to escape the psychological bond that imprisons her. So I think it's a really important book, and the writing was really good. I wasn't having an issue with the writing or the plot. It just wasn't a time for me to read it. So I wouldn't say don't read this or anything like that. Try it out if you're interested in it. And then I have another book that I'm pretty sure is just a soft DNF for now, and that is Theo of Golden by Alan Levi. This was the book that I was going to read for my in-person book club, and it's a contemporary fiction book. And again, this one, the writing is really good. The concept is really interesting. It's just my mind was just not in the mood for it, sadly. But it also has a little bit of like a religious undertone to it. And I am not super religious, so that also could have. But basically, it's following our main character. His name, he just goes by Theo. And he's moved to the town of Golden. And he's just this mysterious stranger that arrives in this city. And everyone's like, why is he here? What is his purpose? And he ends up visiting this coffee shop where he sees 92 pencil portraits of people in the town on display for sale. So he decides to purchase each of these portraits one by one and re-gift them to the people that they're about. And when he does that, he gets to learn about their lives and what they've gone through, and just gives them a lot of advice. And it talks about just like the power of generosity and the importance of wonder in your life, and the possibilities of just like how someone can change your life just through kindness. So it's got a really, really great message. My mind wasn't in it, unfortunately. Then we got 2 more books. Thank you for sticking with me. I just finished today as a filming an audiobook of Simply More by Cynthia Erivo. This was at Libro FM ALC that I had. I really enjoy Cynthia Erivo because of Wicked, but also her work on Broadway in The Color Purple as well. And it was just a book, a memoir about her life and everything that has happened for her up until now. But it's called Simply More, but then like there's an asterisk. So it says Simply More, a book for anyone who has been told they're too much. So there was a lot of really good advice in this, and I was able to take away quite a bit of it because I'm in the middle of job interviews and searching, and sometimes that can just take a toll on your mental health and thinking you're not good enough or you're too much for the role. She basically has small chapters or vignettes reflecting on the way that she's grown as an actor and a person, the lessons she's learned over the years of performing, and how we're capable of so much more than we think. So I highly recommend listening to it or reading it. I'm going to purchase an actual copy of it and reread it again and annotate it, and I'm very excited about it. And then finally, I read Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. I am not quite done with it yet, but I'm going to finish it before February is over, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be a 4-star. Very solid book, good writing, really easy to read. Like the dialogue is very, very like simple, but she has a lot of funny little quirky things that go on in the book. This book follows our FMC Alexis and our MMC Daniel, and they come from 2 different worlds. As you can see on the cover, she comes from a really rich, prominent family in Minneapolis. She is a surgeon in the city, and then Daniel, he leads a very simple life. He is a carpenter, kind of a jack of all trades. He lives in a small town 2 hours south of Minneapolis. He has like a farm and animals and a goat. And this romance book is just really talking about how you can merge 2 different lives in order to be able to be together, or you can also let it tear you apart. And that is what our FMC Alexis is dealing with throughout this whole book. She is just so determined to try to impress her father and her mother, because she feels like she's like the last person able to do that because her brother has been disowned. And the parents are so awful in this book, especially the father. He is literally like the worst thing in the planet. Like literally, you would never think that as a parent you'd be disappointed that your daughter's a surgeon. And he's disappointed because she didn't go into the exact medical field he wanted her to go into. Oh no, I'm sorry. He wanted her to be a surgeon. I don't think she did that. She is in the OBGYN field, I think. I could be incorrect. I can't remember. But it makes you so angry. And Daniel is just such a nice loving, capable character. And that's what Alexis really needs in her life. Someone to support her and not overtake her like her mother and her father and her ex-boyfriend and even just like her family name does. And Daniel does that for her. It's a really great book. Highly recommend it if you're looking for a nice contemporary romance. Okay, I've been yapping on for half an hour and editing me is going to be really upset about it, but it's fine. I wanted to be able to talk about the books that I've read in both months because I didn't do a wrap up. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video and I look forward to filming more wrap-ups for you. Let me know in the comments below what was your favorite and least favorite book that you read in February. And I will see you guys in another video soon. Bye guys.